What's up, everybody? No, that's not gonna work. That's a terrible intro. What's up?
Yeah, sick and normal.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Alternative Blacks podcast live on YouTube. I ever tell you about the one time I abbreviated YouTube as YT and immediately confused people as to why we were live on white?
We're live on the whites.
Exactly. But no, today we got an interesting conversation. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, not Allen Iverson, and
No,
its place
I wore
in.
this shirt for a reason.
I know. That's why I had to make the disclaimer. I said, Chris, we're going to talk about AI tonight, and you got way too excited. Wrong AI. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence.
I'm completely unprepared now.
And how the future of craft beer could be affected by AI. I sent you two articles, one that was from October of the previous year, and then another one that was about 5 years old. And I thought that was interesting just because, 5 years later, where are we at now? But before we get into any of that, first and foremost, happy International Women's Day. I believe Love City actually posted something about the percentage of breweries that are 100% women owned are what?
Or what? Or
Yeah,
white?
yeah, no. What is the percentage of completely women owned breweries?
Completely?
Completely. That's how they fucking got me because I was like, oh, it's about this, and I was like, oh,
Completely women?
completely.
I mean, in single digits?
It's in single digits. It's slightly better than the amount of black owned breweries.
Two? No, three. Two?
2%.
2%.
Yeah. So that was a very interesting factoid. So I was gonna let you give a quick shout out to any women-owned breweries that you particularly are fond of, or ones that you think are deserving of a quick little shout out.
Well, way to put me on the spot there,
Yeah, yeah,
Tyler.
yeah. Do you know any?
Um, I think and I think this is the thing, right? Like I have a bunch. We have a few well-known breweries that we know of and that we've frequented, and I enjoy all of them. There's a few in Philly, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple in Philly.
And I think the problem is when you go into like favorites, when it's such a small pool, it's just like I
I,
enjoy it all.
I didn't mean to say favorites. I meant to say if there's any that you would like to give a quick shout out to that just come straight to like the front of the mind. Like for instance, Stouts before it got sold and bought and everything like that.
Absolutely.
Like got to give a shout out to Stouts for being the grandmother of like craft beer in the area, right?
Sure, if we're talking about, yeah, shout outs, guess you gotta shout out Dock Street. We're talking about Philly, right?
Mm.
Um, you got any for yourself besides stouts?
Yeah,
And
Stouts. We got Dock Street, obviously being a very early pioneer. Obviously, there's Love City, that is technically majority women owned. You also have Humble Parlor, who is women partially woman owned as well. Attic Brewing Company is women owned. There are quite a few. Triple Bottom. There's
bottom, yeah.
quite Philadelphia Brewing Company actually, which would have been Yards before Yards.
Yeah,
They're women owned. So there are quite a few women owned breweries just within the area, and
but
so
if you're thinking about like completely owned women's breweries, which is where my head was trying to go,
oh
since
no,
we're
you can't go there. That's way too hard.
are any of them completely woman owned?
Mm. That's a good question. I would have to actually look that factoid up. Um, when I looked up who was the owner of Philadelphia Brewing Company, it just said Nancy. So I mean, could potentially be her, and her project. But I that's tougher for me. You know, while we focus on being black in craft beer, I think the obviously there is room to learn more about this, and you know, anybody that's marginalized is kind of like within that same arena as us. But obviously, we have a
Yeah,
focus on one thing and not the other. Because both of them, unfortunately, still need to be fought for a lot more. So, while I feel like we could say, oh yeah, all of these craft breweries that are black owned, while still with like keeping in mind that that's just a 1%, um, it's really hard to like really identify what those 2% of completely woman owned actually are. So anybody that's in the industry, especially any women that are in the industry, any non-binary peoples that are in the industry doing the damn thing right now, just wanted to give a big shout out and recognition to that before we get into the topic of today.
I agree. I think our goal is always to make the craft beer, the craft beer sector, the industry more diverse,
Right.
as diverse as the product is, right? I think that would be the end goal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To have that amount of diversity in the staff, in the brewers, in the owners. And so, and it goes back to, like you said, we have a we have like an eye or like a vision of black owned,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of what we're looking at. And so we sometimes, especially when we're talking about like ownership structures, it's hard to tell when something is completely minority owned. In some cases, in a lot of cases, especially if they've been established for a while. And so, if they're new, it's a big deal that we're adding to that space. And so, niche.
Yeah, well, I was like, your voice got distorted, but I'm assuming it was a
It was a
vehicular that was going through.
it, it was a motorcycle.
It moved. Oh, okay.
A motorcycle. So like anytime like there's an addition, we're obviously going to be now privy to that. But these places that have been established and have able to keep their standing and expand, um, kudos to them. But sometimes it's kind of sometimes it gets kind of murky because of the fact that when we talk about, oh, it's minority owned, but is that a majority ownership? Is it minority ownership? Is it full ownership? And I think I need to do more research and understand more what the completely owned businesses are, and really make a point to get them out there and talking about them and supporting them as much as possible.
No, I
And
feel
that's
that.
all I'm saying about
And
that.
that's all I have to say about that. No, that's the goal, really. It's just like, you know, when we go places, we obviously are trying to look out for, you know, what's black owned, what are like the hot breweries in that area. But I think to support, you know, specific breweries that are like underrepresented in this industry is obviously something that we're definitely striving to do as well. So like today was the question of, you know, there's a brewery, Sacred Vice, that opened up their tap room finally, not too far from Evil Genius, and the question was, oh, do I go there, try their beer, bring a 4-pack home, and try that? But I was like, it's International Women's Day, and maybe I should just like run over to Humble Parlor and like show some love. And so that's what we ended up doing instead, because you know, me going there wasn't going to be like newsworthy. It wasn't like they were expecting me at this place. Like they don't know who the
Yeah,
fuck I am. Like, so did it make sense for me to go there and, you know, and what looks like another like white male owned brewery? Do they need me today? I doubt it. It's not like I'm not going to stop by tomorrow or something like that either. So it's just like, ah,
yeah,
today's not the day.
they can wait.
Yeah. But we definitely, you know, I think it's one of those things to make a better effort at identifying, you know, what are these underrepresented and marginalized like kind of communities within the craft beer space. And so going forward, I think today was just a really good day to like reflect on that. So, um, before we get into the topic, what are you drinking?
Beer. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I'm glad you're drinking beer because I was worried I brought beer as well. So at least we're on the same page.
At least we have that going for us. We finally, after years of doing this, have figured out that we're drinking beer.
After beers of doing this?
After years of doing this, we're finding out we're not drinking beer. Um, I have the Von Trapp and Trogs collab, Dunkelweizen, uh,
So
dark,
a dark
dark
Weizen.
wheat, yeah, a dark wheat ale with maple for a
Okay.
little sweet.
So we were talking about this before here, and I'm like, you knew I was at the gym because you were at the gym, right?
Oh yeah.
So I was on the treadmill, and I decided to watch the Wired Every Beer Style Explained.
Oh boy.
And so you said Dunkel. I was like, I know that one.
And to celebrate, we're supporting. Well, this is more like white women, I guess, but we've got the Stanley Stein. I call him Steinley. Do you do you not approve of Steinley? Quite honestly, this is an amazing mug.
That's
Like
an amazing vessel.
I could walk away for 2 hours and this will still be cold.
Yeah, I might need that in my life.
It is amazing.
Yeah, we might need a ABP branded Stanley.
Now we're talking, and
Yeah.
that's an investment.
Right. Well, we gotta get people fighting over it. That's the goal.
That is the. We'll just yeah, we have to do Stanley to get all to if we were going to get all the white women to start fighting over it because
So I was on the treadmill and I was thinking because Dunkel got brought up so much, and I was like, you know, the goal here, especially with trying to like bridge the gap between craft beer and black culture, and maybe not black culture, but black people, because you know the culture's there. It's just not the people. Uh, I would like to see a Nike collaboration with a brewery and do a Nike Dunkel.
all right, okay, yeah,
And like I
and
want the beer and a limited run of shoes, which would I would love them to partner with the black brewery, and then I would love for the proceeds like to go to that brewery, you know?
yeah,
Like of the
brewery.
not just the beer, because I want them to make a limited release shoe for it as well. And that's where like the beer, but like the money, like you're gonna sell this for like 150. Who knows what the fucking resale is going to be? I would like to see that money go back to the brewery, but that's
Okay, so it opens up an avenue of beer names that are shoe related, so that we can get the lucrative brewery shoe deal.
yeah, yeah.
No one else is doing this. Because when you think shoes and sneakers, you think craft beer, obvious.
But it's one of those things too that was just like such a heavily like black thing that I feel like got co-opted and adopted by just like the street culture anyway. And I don't think that's too far off from a lot of things that we talk about with beer. Like when you run back and like look at the history and like who's behind a lot of this stuff, especially when it was culture like driven, you know, craft beer definitely takes from like hip hop culture, street culture, black culture, and so
Does for sure.
why wouldn't it make sense? Like, yeah, we want to see it in music as well, but like, why wouldn't it be fun to see it in streetwear? You know, because I was thinking about that a lot this week. Like, okay, what would clothing look like for us? You know, if we were a little more intentional with stuff, how does that translate? Because we can go after it through the avenue of like, oh, what do we see when we're at breweries? Like, oh, quarter zip would be really nice, which it would be. But on the other end of it too is just like, what did Mac do that was fucking epic? And it's that track jacket that's like $200,
That
and it's just
that's
like,
that jacket. If that jacket even if if that price started with a one, I might have
Right.
just
And the difference is you and I are never those people to be like, maybe me more than
yeah,
you. Like I'll buy a $90 pair of shorts, right?
corduroy shorts.
Corduroy.
Quarter
Um,
short.
but again, like it did make me like hesitate when I hear that 200 number, and I want it, but it's just like
Yeah,
I want to do some other things and pay off some other stuff with that too. Uh,
I got loans to pay.
I got debt.
Yeah,
So, but
in a once her money.
yeah, I think. Oh, I didn't even talk about what I'm drinking, but I will explain this. My comments around what we wear, these collaborations also weren't too far off of this artificial intelligence conversation as well, because it's understanding the data, understanding what's been, what's presented to you, and trying to maintain a balance. And I think that's going to be always the hardest thing for us, is like, this is what we want to do, but what actually like makes sense, or um, trying to, we put out a beer and we want that beer to be the successful beer, but the data is saying something else. And just like having cold hard facts in front of us to say, like, while you want this to like be the thing, this is actually what we should be leveraging and highlighting. And so I will bring up my idea with that later. But I'm going to
Okay.
introduce the beer, then introduce the topic, which I have already. But I am drinking this Bressel beer from
Very
the
nice.
brewery formerly known as Chatty Monks.
Is their brewery name just a symbol now, Tyler?
Right. Just a symbol of greatness, symbol of the city.
The symbol of the city, which is a Japanese
So,
structure. It makes sense, damn it.
yeah, and I was gifted. But this is a Keller Pilsner made with unique snack shell pretzels. And they're not, you know, unique in the sense of very individual and very,
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a brand.
individualized. It's a unique pretzel, not unique, but like brand name unique, but like not a unique brand name. It's just unique, but not like
Unique
you.
New York. Unique New
I
York.
didn't realize how like hard explaining that was gonna be.
Yeah,
Um,
just say it's the brand name.
it's a brand. It's a brand name. Uh, it it's pretty freaking good. Um, it's fresh. It's clean. It's exactly what I've been looking for lately. Trying to get away from too many hoppy things.
Okay, I
Just
feel that.
yeah, wanting something refreshing. I'm still not big into porters, and stout season's ending, and so you know I like my Helles beers. I like stuff that's crisp like pilsners and light lagers, amber ales, and so this is right up there for me. It's it's not like a salty beer, but it's not overly like malty or like grainy or anything like that either. It's just a
Yeah,
really interesting balanced beer that just keeps me refreshed. I enjoy this. That's the best way of
I
explaining
agree
this.
with you. And to take you behind the curtain a little bit, we both had this beer, and even though I'm not drinking it, I can vouch for the fact that it's just very crisp, and it's an interesting combination. Like it's just like it's like having uh it's like having a pickle beer with your sandwich, in the
Mm,
sense that part of the food that you would have with a drink is like in the drink. So like you would have beer and a pretzel.
right.
Now the pretzel's in the beer.
But I would even take it the other way too, right? Where it's just like you're just adding to the body of the like of the uh of the beer, like, so if you had pickle in your like pickle in your beer, like the double nickel pickle,
Nickel
You know,
pickle.
but
Gotta love
like
the
say like double
pickle.
nickel pickle with a Cuban sandwich, right? Like, you know, it just
Ooh,
it adds to the experience. And so while you might have like a beer with your pretzel or a pretzel with your beer, right? To have that pretzel in this beer, I think just that's what elevates this beer in particular from
yeah,
for me. It's it's adding that extra body. So while your Cuban sandwich has that pickle flavor to it, and now you bring this pickle beer into the mix as well, and it just elevates that pickle element of it. Um,
yeah.
I think that's what happened with this beer. It's like, ooh, beer and pretzel, like that tastes good, but let's take that beer and like just add a little body to it because it's a pilsner, right? And so like having like this breadier build to it is what's nice to it because it's like it's not like there's a lot of adjunct flavors with the pills like a craft pilsner, right? You might get some floral notes.
Right.
You'll get like grainy, like bready notes anyway. So to just breadify a pilsner, it works in such a uh, seamless way, like in a way that's just like common sense. But like thinking back on it, I haven't seen it done a lot like this, and I love it.
I agree with you. Particularly because one, I love your glass, by the way.
Love City.
Such a gotta shout out Love City. And yeah, it's got there it is. There it is. Now some yeah, gotta shout out Love City, gotta shout out there you go. Gotta shout out that type of mug. Such a good one.
A
Um,
tanker.
is that what it's called? That's
So people
amazing.
call it tankers, yeah. But we should do a video on this actually because it's the way that like it has these like little divots in it, but the bubbles are on the inside, and it's the way that it cascades through the bubbles and how like the carbon is like released through that and like the gases get through is why it's particularly designed this way. So we should do a whole like video series
Go down.
on glasses because why not nerd out?
And I'm all in on doing
Yeah.
glasses. But I will agree with you on this beer in particular. I'll agree with you on this beer in particular. And even there, so this is this is for their pretzel and beer fest that they've done this beer,
Yeah.
uh, the Reading pretzel beer fest, and so do a pretzel beer, right? They've done this is a second
Yeah.
rendition. They've been doing another pretzel beer with a slightly darker beer, and I can't remember at the moment what type of beer it
You told me
was.
not to get it.
I did tell you not to get it. The first year they brought it out, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And I think they like tweaked it a little bit, and I actually prefer the original recipe, which is
Okay.
that's just like kind of my that's just my preference. But
Which
I
is
really enjoy this beer you're drinking now.
yeah.
I really enjoy
No,
that.
I'm glad you like made me go this way. I was gonna buy the other 4 pack and I was gonna give you two and I was gonna take two from you, but you were very adamant, so I wasn't gonna argue with you. Uh,
I didn't know that. I would have did that. I would have done it.
we had a good day and I wasn't like pushing any boundaries there. Oh, I just cracked my knee.
All the boundaries,
Yeah,
pushing all the boundaries. Could we like maybe split and share? Boundaries crossed.
boundary. Where's this other boundary at? There it is. Pwoosh. Oh, my arm
My,
looked like it was breaking.
looking
Um,
like mine there. What's that? What's going on?
what was I going to say? But no, what you brought up was actually the best transition for this episode. So talking about altering the beer and making these adjustments and it turning into a different beer that you weren't too crazy about, right? We're talking about what does AI, what does artificial intelligence look like in the craft beer world going forward? Has it been utilized yet? Like, what does that look like? And so one of the ideas for AI use cases in beer is like utilizing QR codes, giving like a feedback loop. There's the very data analytical side of it where like your beer is supposed to be hitting these like markers and receiving that data, tracking that data, utilizing it to hone in what the beer should be, but then also getting customer feedback and utilizing about like I forget who it was that actually put out a beer with the QR code, but they got about like an 80% return on all beers that were sold, and people actually gave feedback, and so they utilized that data and actually like enhancing their uh, their beer and how it was made. And so I think in that case, there's the hit or miss element of that too, because too many chefs in the kitchen, right? Like,
Right.
what does the beer come out as? If someone who doesn't like IPAs is really giving input on what an IPA should be like, but at the same time, people that don't like IPAs, like I would like to develop an IPA for that person. And so it's how does this data then eventually get split up? Can you have it recognize that oh, this is an IPA lover, and so it's just like what would tend to be human recognition, like being able to decipher, oh, this guy has a lot of like these cases of I don't like IPAs that are being said, versus just like, oh, I'm reading this is the feedback and this is how we'll improve this beer, and then you have an IPA that's actually a pilsner.
An India Pilsner Ale. Yes, Tyler.
Ooh.
Amazing.
But I think there's oh,
It's an interesting conversation.
there's a place in Pennsylvania called Imperial. So it's Imperial, Pennsylvania. It's right outside of Pittsburgh. And I want to do some research. I just found this out because I think Alter Genius made a post and tagged their location as that. I want a Imperial, Pennsylvania ale.
Ooh. I like where this is going.
Right, exactly. Like I want this like IPA, right? Like I think that's so cool. It's like how would you not like I think it's a big draw. But AI in craft beer, what's your original like initial takes on this? What are your thoughts? Pros, cons? Are you for it? Are you against it? Like what do you think?
I am for it in the sense of helping you tweak things and helping you, for example, handling customer feedback, which was what you brought up. One of the articles really hit on basically you're getting the customer feedback, you're inputting it into the system, and that system's going to tweak the recipe based on the feedback. I think that is going to help a lot with understaffed places, small local breweries that, excuse me, if they have this technology and it's available to them, um, I think it's really going to help them put new beer out, make it repeatable, and help keep their consumer base and help them grow. And it's going to obviously help larger, breweries to throw out things, new things, and see what sticks, and then go back and they can tweak it and mass produce it really quickly. So I think this is really good for just making new beer because craft beer is one of those things where it's like, okay, well, what's next? Like, what's the next thing? You know what I mean? So
I
now we have an easier way to
I think
get to the.
I think we wind up with better trends than sticking a fucking hot poker in our beer. You know, like I think I think we're going to hit better
What was it called? A spike beer? Was or a javelin ale? What
Oh
was
my
that?
god, it was the red.
Beer?
I think it was a red pecker beer. Um,
Right.
no, but I think that's what I'm excited about. I think the original potential apprehension to it, like why people might be scared about it, is small scale breweries who can't like afford. Which I mean, for the most part, AI seems very affordable. To a degree, at least the open. I mean, that's why I like ChatGPT's like name of it too, is this open AI, like this open sourced. Um,
That's the thing, right? That's the thing. Like, as long as people can make something open source,
it's
like
accessible,
maybe you have this souped up version of it
right?
that's been pushed down and has been tweaked and tweaked and tweaked and is very efficient. But maybe there's an open source version that's just pretty,
Right.
that's good.
So like for instance, like big corporations like Anheuser-Busch, InBev, all these like different like Sam Adams, these
Yeah.
people are going to be able to license out the in-house version of it where the data is proprietary, right? So like it's going to, that data will never leave, right? The learning module will learn, but it will not teach anybody else it's kept in house, and I don't have to worry about this data. Like, this is my secret still, versus like if this was this open source kind of stuff, and like I'm a very successful brewery, but like, now InBev and Anheuser can both through due diligence figure this out and get my shit, right?
Yeah.
And
So the thing though I see is I don't know how beneficial it would be beneficial, obviously, to these larger macros, right? But how beneficial? I think it's far more beneficial to the craft beer industry just because I think AI could be utilized, is going to be utilized way differently in the macro scene. Like the
yeah,
AI is going to be utilized to in real time make the process as efficient as and repeatable, consistent as possible. That's
it's
not necessarily what we're looking at here in craft.
no, it's going to be repeatable. It's going to be efficient. It's going to identify different markets. It's going to identify different trends. It's going to just kind of clean up the process of what would have been a needed an extra 1,000 people to actually work on this, scale that down, and that's where the fear, I think, would lie within it, as like it's going to displace a lot of jobs. But like all things, if done correctly and if done it like they want to make money. And so I don't think any of these industries are looking at it in a way that would be like, oh, if I could lose workers, if I can move workers to make money in different areas,
Yeah, well,
I'm
that's
gonna,
the problem is that's like a that would be a progressive way to look at it.
yeah, yeah.
And unfortunately, with massive corporations, the ownership structure
How,
is not that.
right, but however, what's going to happen is as it becomes more accessible, as the open like sources exist, the brewery down the street that couldn't initially like afford to hire 2 3 more people, or the other brewery that couldn't afford 5, or then the other one that couldn't afford 10, the other one that couldn't afford 100, they're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree with that.
I think the balance here, like I think the pros far outweigh the cons. I had to look into this. I'm not gonna lie. I am the Terminator's been warning us about this.
Well, that's the
It,
thing.
it's
Like,
a
at what point?
it's not
At
a
what point?
super AI.
Yeah, no, it's not a
It's
brain.
not conscious. Like
It just takes information in and changes the algorithm slightly based on the information.
right.
It's not going to learn and have feelings.
Right.
Like,
Even the so like I think that's where I was like worried about, because when I was originally looking at a lot of stuff, the AIs that were like leave your husband, like the ones that were like saying stupid shit, I realized weren't even. It was again based off of all this shit that they've been fed, and it's more probably a reflection of society than it is actually on the AI itself. Um, Now the one did put safeguards to try to stop it from being shut down, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to get into the conspiracy elements of these, but we're not looking at a Skynet.
conspiracy, that's
Yeah,
it. We're not looking at that at
yeah,
least.
we're not looking at Skynet. We're not looking at something that's going to like send missiles off, like um, yet at
Until
least.
it does.
Right. And so I think that's where it became even a bigger conversation, a bigger thing. I mean, I myself, I don't know if you saw the post about today's like live, but I used ChatGPT to make like a post essentially. Like I did a screenshot. I said, "Hey, let everybody know that we're doing a conversation about AI," and I let it like type its own like message, and I used that as like the
You're
promotion. Like,
already a slave to the machine.
right. But I think it's a very interesting thing. It 100% has changed how I think about things. It's allowed an ADHD mind to be very organized, to get stuff out quicker, because
Well,
But
I like the perspective though, because that's not something I've thought about before.
yeah, so like where it is where I could write something, it's like the way I am, it's you know me, I get hyper fixated on something and I go down rabbit holes and like I have the information and then it's just like what do I do with it? And so to be like, "Oh, here's my idea." And then write down very specifically what I'm thinking about and be like, "Can you extrapolate on this? Can you like organize this in a way that's digestible by somebody else? And can we put this into a structure?" I have it. I thought of an idea and I used AI to kind of like round it out today because I had an idea again when I was on the treadmill about utilizing data in a way, and it's so you know Kolsch, right? Kolsch beers. Do you
Yeah,
know like the history of it? And technically, you're not a Kolsch beer if you're not. Do you know all that?
because it's like the regional thing, right? It's got to be
Yeah, you're in Cologne, Germany. I think
yeah,
even more specific than that, there's a specific church that you have to be able to visually like see while brewing to be able to call it a Kolsch. But
yeah,
apparently, a lot there's some bars in that area that like if you're drinking that beer, it's like these Kolsch bars. You order the drink,
yeah.
you get a glass, and you get a coaster, and you get the original coaster and there's a tick mark and you drink your beer and it's put down, someone comes by, fills it again, another tick mark, fills it again, another tick mark, fills it again, another tick mark, fills it again, another tick mark. The only way I stop actually receiving beers is by putting the coaster on top, which coincidentally enough, that's how that tradition,
That's how it starts.
that's how that starts. um,
Ah,
but I
okay.
thought there's something wonderfully efficient about it, and there's also something wonderfully great for the ownership about it, right? Like, you just got to put the coaster on. Maybe next time you'll get it, uh, right? So like it has that benefit, but it was just like, how do you make a brewery that is, that needs to operate on peak efficiency that has a very high like there are peak hours, right? And during those peak hours nothing changes about your business except for maybe, oh, we don't offer flights, right? And so why couldn't you essentially, my idea was to call it a Kolsch corner, and
Close.
the idea was, oh, you can only get the Kolsch beer at this one bar, at this one, like we'll set up a bar over here. You can order the Kolsch beer and it will be in some sort of like track system like Amazon Go groceries, where if you go into an Amazon Go grocery in places like New York that have this time to spend.
No,
um,
sorry. Yeah, I'm not a big city guy. I don't know
yeah,
that
so
technology.
what happens with these Amazon like basically they're just experiments, is you go in, you pick up your groceries, anything you want, you throw it into your like bag, and then you walk out. There's no register, there's nothing like that, but through technology it tracks what comes in and out of your cart, essentially like Amazon, right? Your cart, and whatever you walk out with is what you're charged for.
For your Amazon account. That's terrifying.
Terrifying, wildly efficient. um
It's wildly efficient, but efficiency and terrifying surveillance can
Use
be
right,
the same.
exactly. So like it's, while I think it's light years away from that being able to happen at a bar, I think there's a lot of like
Like that gets
risk.
into
There's a lot of
bar
risk.
at a bar that gets into like chipping people, like that level of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
surveillance. Like a guy walks in, chip 15 is red. When he walks
But
out, we know chip
yeah,
15 had 3 beers.
but I'm like stealing. Like there's a lot. Like there's that could go
It's
wrong, and that I don't
yeah,
like about it. So I immediately brought it back from there. But I was thinking like, whoa, it makes sense to like utilize the data to realize, okay, from day to day or even from month to month, what is the best selling beer? What should be things that are being tracked anyways? And what are the peak times? And during those peak times, okay, that is the only beer that we're selling over here. Our PO, like our point of sale system, obviously still connects from this bar to this bar. You can order multiple drinks that aren't the same beer over here. But if you are literally just wanting to get the peak beer, the beer that everybody seems to want, I'm just gonna do it at a bar where I can either like just tap my card like a beer wall every time I go up, and I can tell you one, two, three, and I can just put that number in before I go get the beer and bring that back and put the 3 down and get the next person. And I don't have to worry about what tap I'm going at. All these 5 taps are the same beer. And so it's just me pushing this beer out to get to you as quick as possible, as efficiently as possible. I think that's the way to go about it. And you get to leverage that thing, and you get to tell people this is the most popular beer. Like, maybe I wasn't interested in that beer, but I am interested on my time. So the average time for a beer to be poured is usually 4 to 5 seconds. Could go up as much as 10 seconds, right? The amount of time it takes for you to get your drink, if you are going to the bar and there's a variety of things that are happening, especially in a post-COVID world, what originally was a 4.3 minute ordeal could take up as long as 15 minutes to get you your order for one transaction.
You've really gone into this.
So
It's you look like Charlie Day right now. You're just missing.
Pepe Sylvia, it's all over the place.
Not only do all those people exist, they all are wondering who their meal is.
But I want to let you, because I know I just spouted it, and I know how my day is already gone, so I have to use the bathroom. I'm gonna give you a second to sit with it. We're gonna go do this, and then come back with your thoughts.
I'll sit and react, and then I'll change off because somehow I'm in your boat today.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna take a second, and then I want to hear your thoughts.
All right.
Pew. And we're back. All right. Thank you for the commercial break brought to you by no sponsors. We don't have any yet. If you want to.
As Ernie Johnson would say on uh on the
TNT,
TNT,
yeah.
I'm sullied by sponsorship.
The Nokia halftime report. Nokia.
Nokia. You get Nokia money?
Right. Who got Nokia money? But I would like to get your take on kind of this thought on AI and breweries and in this capacity and sense of like identifying what's best, but also making it the most efficient during peak hours.
I love everything that you said, and that you brought up, those ideas, things that I've never thought of or thought to think of, or even thought to think of those things. That's why, like, your brain works in that way that
Right.
mine doesn't.
Right.
So like I'm all aboard on all of that. In terms of the AI portion of that though, because you talked about we have the POS and the data from the POS, and obviously I think the way AI should interact with businesses is the things that like an owner would have to do in these small businesses, like owner slash brewer. That's not, that's like fourth on the ladder,
Right.
but would really help. That's the stuff that the AI can take care of. You have all this data instead of having someone who has way more important things to worry about trying to deal with,
Right.
whether it's making sure the beer is okay, trying to update your system, making sure the system's running okay, or if it's someone in like your financial person, they're trying to deal with like money and numbers and they don't have time to deal with taking those numbers that they're dealing with and then doing like a second and third thing with it for another purpose. Like this is where AI, you just like it's just taking the data that it's already developing and it's either fine tuning a system or it's allowing, say, like the brewer, you're going to write the program for, or the algorithm is going to create, boom, this is the feedback on your logger. This is the feedback on your IPA. This is the feedback on your porter. Boom. All right. So when we go in, okay, here are the cliff notes of our feedback. How do we tweak this now?
Right.
Versus,
I guess too, it's like getting AI to help with a rubric almost to say when does the feedback actually merit a change, right? Just because this is the feedback and it should change. If we change the beer based off of constant feedback, it would never be the same, and we might as well call ourselves like Hidden River or Other Half, right?
but yeah,
Um,
I 100% agree with that
so
portion of it.
like where is that cutoff? And
Here's that final.
I think,
Well,
but that's the tough question. And I think that's what AI can help with.
it can because unless you have like a scientist or someone or like a meth or someone who
A
just
meth head?
uses someone who uses statistics, like basically it is determining what is statistically significant
Hmm.
for your brewery. What's the threshold for statistical significance in your feedback? So you have 100 patrons, like say you have 100 patrons per month, real low number, but whatever, 100 patrons per month, and you get two pieces of feedback per month out of those 100 patrons. Is that warranting a complete change?
Right.
Or when you have 20 pieces of feedback, well, now you're at 20% of the people that come in are giving you feedback. That's
Now,
significant.
and then on top of it too, like here's the like data that you probably signed off on without realizing that you've signed off on it, but like your credit card is associated with a mailing address, billing address, but also associated with the amount of data of where you're spending your money anyway, right? So here's all this data that exists on a back end that's probably not as secure as we would actually like. And so yeah, 100 people come in and only like 10% maybe are negative like feedback and the other 90% like it. But then we actually take a deeper dive into it and people within a 50-mile radius end up being that 10%. And so now that 10% actually should be weighed a lot differently than we
Right.
originally thought that 10% should have been weighted, because that other
That's
90%
fair.
was like the quick, oh, this was the opening weekend.
Yeah. So there's an interesting discussion there to be had about privacy and what data really, privacy from a standpoint of legality and
Yeah,
morality,
yeah,
because legality is a much lower threshold than morality
right.
a lot of the time.
Oh.
So I think, but I do think you can still get not all of the data you would be able to from that scenario. Um, you could still get it from uh, really pushing surveys, really pushing
So,
feedback in that sense.
so Hannah brought up a very interesting point about my Colts corner, and it works only when you can control, can 21, like, who's all in there? Is it teenagers? Is it 19-year-olds? Is it, but because the whole point of that system, and the bar that's meant to be just pouring out as fast as you can, 4 or 5 second like intervals. Here's beer, here's beer, here's beer. Not meant for you to be a, let me see your ID, let me see your ID, let me like make sure that you are of actual age, right? And so
Okay.
how do you do that now in peak hours,
How?
when you identify peak hours, when you're at certain breweries especially too, which are more nighttime hours and all that type of stuff, and you can easily say, only people that are 21 and older can come in. You have somebody at the front door take other half, right? Other half, for instance, you have to be 21 or meet some other fucking standard. Like, you're clearly not 21 to get in. And so by the time you make it to this Kolsch corner, I the bartender don't have to worry about IDing you because it's not on me anymore, right? I'm just.
Yeah.
But
I
how do
would
you
say,
do it during non-peak hours, or how do you do it during a
well,
like
you just
what
advertise.
weekends when you want families there? Because if you don't have families there, you're going to lose business. And
Well, this is what I would say.
okay,
I
because I
think
have a concept. I have a good
there's a,
concept.
I have a counterpoint in that, and maybe this is, it's not necessarily what is supposed to be, because technically, I guess if you don't look 35, which what is that
Right,
anyway?
you should be ID.
You should be ID. But like the fact is, no 18-year-old or 17-year-old is gonna go, yo, bro, yo, it's Friday night. Yo, let's go to other half and drink 8-ounce glasses, 8-ounce pints of beer.
So, oh, by the
Like
way, this
one,
there's only one size being served at this Kolsch corner, and it's whatever the recommended like size for the most popular beer is. There's no, oh, I only want an 8 ounce of this. If you want the 8 ounce, get to the fucking main bar. Sorry. Uh,
well, I would, and I would say that in that model, I would imagine that beer would always be poured from that bar, regardless.
no, so you
If
could get the beer from the main bar if you're going to be ordering cocktails and other things as well. And maybe it's slower down there, and you just want that one beer, and it makes sense for them just to pour that beer, and it made sense. For some reason, everyone else didn't realize the line was slower over here, right? So it's not like the beer isn't unavailable at the other one. It's just like one and done's, boom, this way. Uh, but yes, like no 18-year-olds really going
yeah,
to other half to have a good time,
that's kind of my thought.
because
Like,
especially other half doesn't do
and
cocktails.
it's not, yeah, and it's not even like it's not even like it's a bar setting. Like it's clearly like a brewery and just like
Hmm.
even like a small brewery and then just like your dive bar.
Yeah.
Like the feel of it's
So
different.
I
It's
think
completely different.
the reason why you're trying to like work with it too, and it's not foolproof, because the situation I'm about to bring up can be easily run around, right? So the idea would be, it's it's a weekend hour, so while it's a peak hour, but it's not a peak hour enough to be like no families. Like it's noon in the summer on a Saturday. There's a shit ton of people here, right? It's good weather. Um, and so what initially would be everybody can walk up to this bar for quick service isn't necessarily that anymore. But if you buy into like a mug club, like you know how like breweries and like bars have these mug clubs, or a
Sure.
VIP club, which is very actually inexpensive. It doesn't cost too much, maybe $5 a month, you know, something like that, which is
Hmm.
very minimal, but it's literally just $5 extra that every single one of these individuals sign up for, whether they're there or not, right? Um,
Right.
and $5 might be like a low sell, but it's the concept. But it during these hours where you know families and it's that questionable thing, we don't want any like to worry about it because we're not IDing people the same way that we normally are. But like here through a vetted system of you know we done the application for you, we have your ID, we realize who you are, who's tapping in, who's tapping out, and this might actually be AI, but again it's surveillance. Um, if you're not actually using your card, we can identify that. No, that wasn't you. Using your card, Netflix, YouTube, right? Um,
That's kind of creepy, but I agree.
yeah, but in the same sense, that will help with again certain people being able to go to a certain bar for the popular beer and just like to keep it going. Um,
I feel
how
like
that works around is like if I go do that and bring it back to my like 18, like my 20-year-old son who just happens to be with me, I'm just like he's been in college drinking this whole time. I'm gonna give him a beer, you know. That's an easy workaround, but anyway,
I would say that last quip aside, what the fuck was that? I know. Um, and what the fuck is that?
I'm gonna let
Since
you
you,
finish, and then I will tell you.
I'll finish swiftly.
Okay, Taylor.
Um, you threw me off with that last cut. I would say, I think the brewer or the bartenders, you want to make it as easy for them as possible, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I think that any self-respecting bartender who takes their job seriously is always going to at least card somebody who they have an inkling is not 21. And I think it's fair enough to allow them to, you know, do that job and to assess that on their own in real time. Um, and so I still think that, hey, listen, if you have someone at the door, okay, fine, then go crazy inside. Don't even think about it.
Right.
But if you don't want to pay that person to be sitting at the door all the time, especially at non-peak hours, listen, at or maybe it's a hybrid system.
But
At a certain time, you bring the guy in. He starts at 6.
that's how
He
it
comes in.
works.
Before then, it's just the bartenders have to vet the people.
But no.
And
That's
fine.
exactly how it would work too, because it's during peak hours. That's already taken off their shoulders, right? There's the guy at any of the inroads that's taking care of it. They're only supposed to be 21 in here, off the shoulders of the bartenders during non-peak hours.
And this is a normal system. Like that's how
Yeah,
any like
yeah,
place that is a normal restaurant bar in the daytime but
right.
turns into a club at night works,
But
you
during
know?
but during non-peak hours or hours where like it is a peak hour, but you can't afford to say fuck off families because you'll lose all of your business, right? It would be that's where the mug club, that's where like this element comes into play. So while I might
So like
usually
a
drink,
happy hour time,
so
maybe.
like
Start a happy
usually
hour.
while I would stock this bar with two, three, four people to like kind of manage this quick like going system, maybe it's only one person there now because the fact is the only way to get to it is if you are part of this club system, this identified system that you are a VIP member, you're a club member, and so you get to go to the special bar to do it.
Oh no, I
Everybody else
agree.
gets ID'd. At this point, the bartender should know this people, and they can still, because of how few people probably will sign up for it, they could easily do it. Now and this is where the other part of AI comes in into play. So this is I mean, Play-Doh, right? We're talking about Play-Doh systems for home brewing, but are also utilized in actual like breweries that send Bluetooth notifications. Anyways, where you're utilizing data. I mean, we were just at Pagoda
right?
City that was talking about all this, so that you can just be away now and get all this data sent to
Sure.
you and alert. So this is where the AI is starting to really come into play, because not only is it an alert, I'm thinking about it from that perspective as being a brewer and being away. Now, I can set in if I'm supposed to be on call as the brewer, I am gonna allow the tracking on my device that kind of tracks me, which is usually my phone, to be like, hey, if a potential problem is going to arise and you realize that I am technically supposed to be on call within the data system, because I could put on the I'm out of office, like do not disturb, or I am like on call type of thing, based off of my geolocation. If I am 2 hours away, which you originally think I am 1 hour away, and so when the alert system would have went off and I should have been able to get there within an hour, and now I can't, and now it's going to be way too late for me to get there. If you realize that there is a potential problem that I need to get there within 2 hours, I can actually send the alert, which normally I would have sent the alert in 30 minutes, right? This is where all these artificial intelligences are like really
That I agree with.
interesting
Yeah.
to me. But I think it even comes back into the service element of it too, right? It becomes into sensors on the beer shouldn't kick and then I have to go change the keg out. I should have a really good understanding of how this day is going, and I should have an understanding that based off of today's pattern and our month to month patterns and our yearly patterns, that this beer is at this percentage of the keg, and within 3 transactions going to kick. I'm going to send the alert during this either non-peak hour or this peak hour where we have a lower staffed member at this other bar. I'm going to send the alert to the like essentially pager system that they have, that hey, start walking towards the cooler. Boom, keg kicked. I'm already there as it's kicking to transition over. And now I don't have to worry about, even if someone's pulling it, that, oh, this is like a really weird thing. Someone's pulling it as I'm trying to like change the keg out. There's a valve within there, because it kicked, automatically swipes on, that you can't try to pull from here. It's been kicked and then the system put it in. There are so many benefits, I think, from
There's so
having,
many
yeah.
benefits. Yeah.
Ah, so
That's a really good example. And I think that's the exact example that at least now, like that is the capacity that I think AI serves in the ongoing operations of a brewery. Um, something of that nature. You have the information, you have the sales data, you have the operational data, you have these types of data. And the AI is able to change the way timing of alerts happen to people that need to do a thing in the system manually. And so it's not necessarily when we talk about AI, I think a lot of times we think, oh, AI, like you turn it on, you walk away, and that's it.
right.
That's not, we're not there yet. And that level of AI is the one that's going to like take over the world. We don't want that. What we want is, instead of you saying, I set my alarm at 5 o'clock, right? Normally, because that's generally how things go, right? But oh, I need an alarm 5 minutes earlier right now in actuality because of the trends and the patterns that I've identified.
The trends, the patterns
So
that I
it
identified, me,
yeah,
the the traffic that I wasn't aware of, and like for
correct.
instance, like Waze, Google kind of do this already, right? Like they identify like, oh, there's this closure that you weren't,
Mhm.
or like, oh, originally the night before it said you need to leave at 1:30, and then something happens like, it's 1:15, you need to get your ass on the road. Um,
Yeah.
and that's like the cool information, but that source from everybody else being willing to like utilize their data to show, right, like to open source this like information. And yeah, I think
But
there's a
that's
lot of use
where
cases, yeah.
yeah, that's where it's useful because instead of saying, "Oh, I have to do something at 5," the data and trends show that I need to do that at 4:30 if I'm going to be on time now, leading up to it. So instead of me having to see the data while I'm doing whatever I'm doing, and then my alarm goes off at 5, well, now I'm fucked. Half an hour late for whatever it was. The AI moves that alarm up to 4:30 based on the trends and data it has. Now I get the alarm at 4:30. Now I can do it in time.
And so what I'm hearing too is like I'm hearing alarms and I'm like hearing I'm seeing red flags, and this is for the people that work for like Jeff Bezos, right? I'm seeing like, oh, I'm just gonna have to pee in more bottles because I'm not gonna get a bathroom break because like the efficiency is like run up to like the fucking scale, and if I miss a fucking second, I'm screwed. And used in that capacity,
Oh,
yes,
you will be screwed.
you will be screwed. However, for the companies that are like in actuality wanting to run humanely, with these rules, principles, we want to give you mental health breaks, right? And so for instance, Necromancer closed, and we'll be reaching out to Necromancer employees to try to do an episode, right? And they closed. And a lot of comments, which were disturbing, were like, go woke, go broke, like all these other things. And it was just fucking awful to be in these comments, like to read about a brewery that I thought was, one, really good beer, but two, actually a really good mission. Um,
Yeah,
which again
agree.
talks about the culture that is craft beer. Um,
Hmm.
and so the idea though is just what you said. I have this 5 o'clock deadline that I have to hit. I need to get out of here, like whatever. It's like my son's recital or whatever. We're like being in the service industry, especially, but being in like beer and anything, like anything that's like this type of making thing, where it's like it takes as long as it takes. Being able to understand that process a lot better, because sometimes as the artist, we'll call it, it's hard to understand it. That creative mind doesn't always think about it
Yeah.
in this correct way, but be able to like input all this information into this stuff. Yeah, it's going to be efficient. Yeah, it's going to be like bam 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 bam, like you need to be hitting these benchmarks. However, as the employer, if I'm able to say, yeah, I want all these benchmarks here are the priorities of things though. Like, is it more important that they hit this benchmark, or is it more important that they get this 20-minute break that like shit, even if like the employees wanted to have like a heart rate like thing, like the Apple Watch, like actually sink
That
in,
would be next level progressive.
and the I could tell that my employee stress level,
Yeah, a stress level monitor algorithm
and
thing that's like,
it's like, ooh,
take a break.
you know
You need to
what?
take a break.
Yeah,
The manager needs to come in and fill your position
uh-huh.
right now.
Tyler's usually calm during this, but he is fucking losing his mind. But I see Chris is actually at capacity to handle this situation. I'm going to send those alarms off.
Yeah, you get an alert. The manager needs to come say, "Hey, take 5."
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll come over as Chris, who has the capacity. You take 5, Tyler. I will handle this situation. That would be like the next level thing that kind of gets into like now we're talking about like Apple Watch technology, Apple Watch with AI
Yeah.
technology type of stuff. But these are the types of things that I think AI, not just in craft beer, but just
Generally,
generally,
well,
can be very useful for.
the Apple Watch checking my heart rate
Yeah.
alerted me that my like heart rate was abnormally high during a period of time. I went back and actually tracked my heart rate over time, and I tracked it over the most stressful parts of my job where
Yeah.
like things weren't getting answered or I was getting fucked over. And since leaving it, what my heart rate actually looks like, and like I mean I started eating a little better. I also started taking care of myself a little more to like help balance it out too. But like that alone wasn't going to like, but it was a good alert. And I was just like, your trend of your wrestling heart rate has skyrocketed, is what my like the shit told me.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we should be starting to like approach this stuff. Like AI should be this element to not only make business better, but make business more humane.
That I agree with. And we've talked a lot about the benefits, and we've mentioned some of the negatives too. If it's applied in the wrong way, it could be very detrimental to the workers. And I think it goes back again to the, absolute, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
You have this technology that has all of this power behind it.
Is that what the brackets on the side, like the straight up lines? So this is an equation. I thought the straight line on either side of a number was an absolute value.
I didn't know that a math joke was going to come from you. Here we go. What is happening? Have I drank too much? Is 2 beers too many drinks? Tyler with a math joke. I didn't even know you knew that. If you told me that you didn't know that absolute value meant the 2 lines, I would have believed you. But here we are.
I'm glad I was able to impress you.
Impress is a word, yes. I agree with that. God. What was I saying? Bezos. If Bezos gets a hold of the power,
Right.
he's going to use it corruptly because that's just how he does shit. But in these, you would hope, in these smaller brewery scenarios, in these small business scenarios where the scenario really is, hey, I can only afford to hire 20 people and then it's me, but I need to do the work of 30 people. How do I make up that difference
Right.
without over hiring and underpaying?
Yeah.
Well, if the AI can help cut some of the hours of all of these different people down so that 20 people can do the work of 30
Mm-hmm.
and you can still pay the people what they deserve to be paid, then that's just a win-win. That's where you want to be.
Oh my god! So yeah, even thinking about that, even thinking about payroll, even thinking about like all like because all this stuff is data, right? So like even thinking about if I'm paying somebody to be the accountant and I can take a lot of their responsibilities away, it's not about taking their job away, but it's taking about okay, cool. Now all this mundane stuff that made you focus so like on X and O's, now I want you to actually think a little more creatively and critically about how do we now
Right.
pay our employees more. Like I
So
want
you
to get
can
here, and how do we pay them more while still expanding, while still scaling up? Where's the fat that we need to trim? What are the safeguards that we get to put in place that are that make everybody feel like it's not an attack? That is, it's very. Sometimes things need to be very ones and zeros, right? But because we're so personable and because we have so many emotions, hearing it from somebody else doesn't make sense, but hearing it from this thing might actually be realized. So being able to like squabble disputes, or being able to like I love the George Lucas thing, right? George Lucas, the reason why I think Star Wars 4, 5, and 6 did so well and everything else after that is questionable is because George Lucas at the time wasn't big enough to be like, I'm George Lucas, I know what's right. People squashed ideas like Jar Jar Binks very early on. You know, they said fuck that, and George Lucas
Yeah.
was in a position to say, "Oh, I disagree." George Lucas got big and then was able to say it, and so being able to be
George
like,
Lucas and Kanye West.
right,
Those
so
are the two main examples.
being able to take big personalities and be like, yeah, I hear you, but this is wrong. You're still going to get the I know better than the AI, but I think it's when it's like a split room, it's where the
Yeah.
AI really comes into to play. Which leads me into an actual interesting conversation because I think we've rounded this out. It's been about like an hour and a half or so for this conversation already, which was a fun conversation for me. Um, but again, running on this treadmill today, it just really sparked a lot. Uh, and so
What's next on the Tyler treadmill conspiracy rabbit hole?
yeah. So the question is, there's three of us that are really make this thing work, right? There's you, there's me, there's Hannah. And we all kind of serve a different purpose. And especially when we're looking at opening up a brewery, we all serve vastly different purposes. And generally, there are four main ingredients to a beer, right? You got your grain, you got your hops, you got your yeast, you got your water, right?
Okay. Someone's been reading.
Who is what?
Okay, now
Who
are
is
you gonna just spring this on me? Okay. So the water is
So I'm actually going to give you a second to think about it. I'm going to tell you about this beer I'm drinking because this is the last thing we're going to be doing tonight. So I am
yeah,
drinking a Burlington,
Burlington?
yeah, Burlington Beer Company.
I could tell by the can label when you
Yeah,
were picking it.
yeah, it's Pine Brook. It's their dry hops lager. I had this one was slightly warm. There's a new like distributor that opened up. It's pretty cool.
Dude,
But
that Pembroke is fucking amazing,
yeah, yeah,
actually.
the can work is wonderful. But it's a dry hopped lager, and it's wonderful. And the reason why we picked this variety pack over anything else was because there was not a single IPA in it.
Dude, so Burlington is loggers. Like they don't just do loggers, but that's their
It
thing.
was a
Like they just
pilsner.
really good
It was
loggers.
a dark lager, a dry hopped lager, and an amber.
Yeah. And all of them are amazing. If you have just go to your local distributor and look for Burlington.
Right, but
Really
like
good.
as we were checking out, he was just like, "Oh yeah, this is a really interesting one. Good beer." And we were like, there was a lot of options that we had and we were thinking about, but this was the only one that didn't offer an IPA. And we love IPAs, but how could we
When you
just
have variety that's just loggers, you're kind of intrigued.
right? We're just like we have to go for this, and they're great beers. They're great beers.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
all right, but now you've had time to think.
I was really enthralled in the Burlington conversation.
All right, so you got water, hops, yeast, and grains.
Okay, so I feel like you're the yeast, maybe.
Interesting. Why?
Hmm. But you also might be the hops because I feel like so here's the thing. The hops and the yeast are what get impart well, malt imparts flavor as well.
Yeah, they all.
I'm probably water because I'm just like, here's the base thing that just needs to be here to make it work. You're not doing anything,
All
there's
right,
nothing creative
here
happening.
I will help you out because I I I get where you're coming from with this. With this, I'm gonna say water is all the external parts. It's always going to be needed. It's what holds everything together. The water is like it's here. So it's the people that have supported us. It's the people that watch. It's going to be the people that buy. It's going to be the stakeholders. That's the water. Water is all the other things that turn the wheels. So now we're really looking at the three of us as yeast, malt. I mean yeast, grain, and hops.
Well, I'll be the grain then. I think that's pretty. But then again, I'll say I'm the grain, Hannah's the yeast, and you're the hops.
And that I think is the absolute 100% correct answer. And and the reason why it's a fucked up reason why is I think hops tend to be, and it's not true, but I think hops tend to be thought of the creative part of the beer. That
In American craft beer, it does, and that's the only reason I've made that distinction.
mhm. And the
I would, if
only
we were talking about German, like European
different
beers,
conversation,
probably say yeast for
right?
you.
But here's why Hannah's the yeast. So I
Mm.
didn't realize. Again, I was watching this video. And it was talking about how the yeast metabolizes sugars and everything like that, and why lactose is used in certain instances for for creating these alcohols. And essentially, they said lactose. Yeast is lactose intolerant. And I was like, oh, that's Hannah. But it is, but yeast ends up yeah.
That you can't just
No, but on the
throw
other hand, yeast also ends up being the business end of things too, right? That's what's being cultivated to turn
the yeast
Right.
yeast is there to make the beer. Like
Right.
without yeast, you just have like multi hop.
Right.
You have multi hop
And
water.
I
Like
think
it,
I think the yeast brings the malts and brings the hops together to work it all out. And I think while you are on the technical side, which we'll call the malts, and I am on the creative side, which we will call the hops, the yeast is the business element to get it to work.
I agree with
No
that.
yeast, it does not work. And I mean, no, any of it, it doesn't work. But I think the yeast really says like, okay, let's get down to business.
To defeat
The
the Hun,
hops.
did they give us daughters when they asked for
Saison.
pops, cops,
Saison.
box? When they asked for box.
All right. Well,
All right.
I think we had a really good episode. But no, I
These are great.
like this was one of those that I felt like was really interesting that I think maybe we did better with not having so much research done because it brought up a lot.
I love the unresearched episodes. These
Yeah.
are great.
Yeah. But next week we are dropping the second part of Carbon Copy. So make sure that you're paying attention for that. But then in 2 weeks we'll be back with another live episode. So if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, critiques, hit us up and we'll try to bring it into the following episode. But until next time.
Peace.